Welcome to part 3, my C4 drag race transmission build. What we're going to do in this video, I'm going to show you what it takes to change a gear set, low gear set in the transmission. There's a lot of machining, some welding, pressing parts on. So I'll just go over, this is a stock planetary set here. Here's the modified one, which doesn't use a lot of the same parts. So ring gears, sun gears are a little bit different, some modification to them. Then the carriers, there's a totally different carrier, and the ring gear is a totally different ring gear. So I'll go over each one of these parts one by one, and on what I do to them. And what we're using here is out of a Turbo 125 gear set. It is a 292 gear set for low gear, and the stock gear set's 246. So you pick up a lot of gear ratio in first gear. And we'll go over each part one by one now. We're going to start with the sun gear modification. This is what the stock C4 sun gear looks like, and this is what we're going to get to. It's a 125 sun gear put onto it. So in order to get to that, first thing we're going to do is pop the bushings out of this, and this sun gear is going to need to be machined. And in order to machine this, we need to soften it first. So we're going to anneal it. I used a weed burning torch, and I heat it up so it is not magnetic anymore. And I just use a magnet on a stick to test that. And it turns out to be a light glowing red when it gets to that point. So once it's soft enough to machine, then we're going to machine it. And this is about what it's going to look like. So I machined down 0.65, and the diameter of it is just bigger than the sun gear from the 125. So I used about a 7/1000 interference fit on that. Then I freeze this sun gear, heat up the 125 sun gear real quick, put them in the press them together, then TIG weld it. And then after that, it can go be reheat treated. I sent mine out to be reheat treated. And then after that, we pop the bushings back in, and we're done with this part of it. Okay, we're off to the carrier now. The stock C4 one, you got to take apart, and we're only going to use a very minimal part of this that has the splines. This is my finished product, and this is what a stock carrier looks like. So we basically got to put these two together. And so basically, we're going to cut out the center part of this, cut out the center of this where the splines are at, and make these things two together. It's easier to explain than what it looks like. I will insert a picture of how far down I cut these down compared to a stock one, what it looks like, and a picture of this one cut out and with the part that's going to go into it, and also do a picture of some of the dimensions that this piece ends up being. After you get both of those two machined, you just push them together, then TIG weld them, and then put your planetary back together, all your pins and your gears back in, and re-swedge the pins. And that's all there is to that part. Okay, let's move on to the ring gear now. This is the stock Ford ring gear. We don't do anything to it, so we can just ignore it. This is the finished product. This is the 125 ring gear. So what we're going to do to this is, we have a roller bearing for it. We're going to machine a pocket in for it. We're also going to bore out the inside of this to accept the C4 bushing. And the reason we do this is because the hub on the C4 bushing and on the carrier hub on this one are different sizes. So we have to bore this one out, put a bushing in it, and we also have to increase the width of the part here. And there's an aluminum spacer in here that the bushing also goes through. And the reason it's in here It's because this is going to push on the number 3 thrust bearing that's in our forward clutch drum. And I'll put up some dimensions for this. The pocket for this roller bearing is different than the Turbo 350s. The pocket gets machined all the way from the outside diameter of this all the way into the bushing, because there's some interference here because of a weld. So we machine it all the way in. And the other thing we need to do, you're going to need to get different clutch frictions, because these splines are different. They're the 125 splines, so you need frictions for the 125, and I'll put up the part number for that. And that's everything. It sounds a lot easier than it is. It's a little bit of machining, some welding. Okay, a quick summary on the 292 gear set. I'm going to go over the cost of what things cost me. My biggest cost was reheat treating the sun gear, which was like $190. My next biggest cost was a planetary gear set for a Turbo 125. It cost me $40 for it. My roller thrust bearing in the ring gear was $13. After that, that's all I had to spend money on, so I was only like $243 into it. Other things you're going to need is the clutch pack. For the Turbo 125, I already had some frictions here. I imagine they're about $30 for 4 of them. So I also had a thrust kit for rebuilding the planetary here, and they're only like about $4 for that kit. Then the bushings kind of lumped into the price of rebuilding the transmission, because I bought a whole bushing kit. So that's all in. So about total with the clutches for the kit would probably be, run somebody about $270, and then plus all your own labor doing machining and everything, which isn't too bad, because out there the cheapest I think there's only one company making this gear set right now, and it's about $900 for this gear set. I know there's some other gear sets out there, the 275s. I've never used one. I'm not sure how much they are. Those are the only gear sets I know that are out there for doing a low gear set. So all in about $243 for me.